What's up, you guys? Teacher Caíque here again, this time around to talk to you about this week's podcast featuring my fellow Your Ex's mentor, Felipe Pan. Well, this time around, Felipe discussed the creative process that goes on behind writing a novel as opposed to the one that goes on when you're writing a comic book. And while I was listening to his podcast, to his interview, I couldn't help but notice some pretty interesting expressions and some pretty interesting vocabulary that he used throughout the interview that I thought would be interesting to share with you guys. I think you can use any of these words or expressions in a composition and just, wow your reader. So I guess it's worth taking a look. All right, I just wanted to share with all of you guys who are going to listen to and learn from Felipe's podcast. So without further ado, I have my notes here and let's go. First up, we have what I think is one of my favorite words in English. Don't ask why, I just really like this word. Uncharted. So one more time, uncharted. I believe he mentioned something about uncharted territory in his interview, and the word uncharted actually means something that hasn't been mapped, right? So something that is unexplored, hasn't been explored yet, right? It is a very common word for you to put alongside territory, so uncharted territory, which is how he used it, I believe. Pretty good word to include in any of your compositions. And as I said, one of my favorite words in English, hands down. Up next, we have an expression off the top of my head. When you do something off the top of your head, or when you say something off the top of your head, it actually means you do it without careful thought. So it's something that's not really planned. When you're writing a novel or a comic book or anything really, right? If it's a note or a text to somebody you like, wink, wink. It's difficult to do it off the top of your head, right? We usually tend to plan this type of thing. I think this is one of the most interesting aspects when it comes to communicating through writing. You have the time to actually plan and map out what you are going to say, right? So it is really complicated to put a composition together off the top of your head, right? So there you go, off the top of my head, another expression Felipe uses throughout his interview that I thought would be interesting to share with you guys. Up next, we have flourishes. Well, flourish is a verb. You may have seen it before, right? But Felipe actually uses it as a noun, right? He mentions flourishes as bold or extravagant words that, are oftentimes thrown in to call people's attention, right? So I just thought this was an interesting use of the word flourishes. Every time you are, trying to juice it up, right? Maybe add some fancier words to the mix so that people are going to be interested or so that people are going to be wowed, right? By your overall, writing performance. You can just say you're adding some flourishes. Thought that was pretty neat to mention. Up next, we have it takes the load off my back. Again, it takes the load off my back. Pretty good expression to refer to something you no longer have to worry about, right? Watch out for how he uses it during his interview. I thought it was a pretty good expression to share with you guys in this video, right? We have two more expressions to go. So the next one that I wrote down was to get down to something. When you get down to something, you actually start devoting your attention to that thing, right? So you can just say, well, I have this composition that I have to do for school. Might as well, just get down to it. Let's get down to business. Let's do it once and for all, right? And last but not least, one of my favorite words to use when it comes to slightly more formal writing is a verb, and it's tackle. Again, tackle, all right? When you tackle something, you make an effort to deal with it. All right, oftentimes tackling something and dealing with something, these two structures are oftentimes used as synonyms. So I think it's another word that is worth adding to your vocabulary list. So there you have it. These are my tips when it comes to vocabulary. All of these expressions were taken from this week's podcast, which you should definitely listen to. And one more time, just for the sake of, closure, the expressions were uncharted. So one more time, uncharted, off the top of my head, flourishes, it takes the load off my back, to get down to something, and to tackle something. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed our mini class, and I will see you around.